You're just seeking attention, Emma, my mother said dismissively, sliding my prescription bottle into the trash. Dr. Stevens has always been too soft, prescribing medication for every little complaint. I watched helplessly as my only relief from the constant pain disappeared beneath coffee grounds and dinner scraps. My name is Emma Mitchell, and at 24, I've spent the last year battling mysterious symptoms that my family refuses to acknowledge. The constant fatigue, the burning sensation in my joints, the unexplained fevers. They dismiss it all as theatrical behavior from their overdramatic daughter. "Mom, please," I pleaded, my hands shaking as I gripped the kitchen counter for support. "Those pills help with the pain. Dr. Stevens says my symptoms are real, and we need to run more tests though." "More tests means more money," my father interrupted, not looking up from his newspaper. "And we all know you're just trying to avoid working at the family store. Your brother Thomas manages just fine, and he never complains." "Ah yes, Thomas. My perfectly healthy 28-year-old brother who never understood why I couldn't just push through like he did." He stood in the doorway now, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold with that familiar look of contempt. "Maybe if you spent less time at doctors' offices and more time working, you wouldn't need to invent symptoms," he smirked. "Some of us actually contribute to the family." I felt tears welling up but forced them back. Crying would only prove their point about being dramatic. Instead, I steadied myself and headed for the stairs, each step sending waves of pain through my body. "Don't forget your shift tomorrow morning," my mother called after me, 6 a.m. sharp. No excuses about not feeling well. That night, I lay in bed scrolling through my symptoms journal. 6 months of documented fevers, joint pain, fatigue, and unexplained rashes. Dr. Stevens was concerned enough to refer me to a specialist, but my family's dismissal made me question everything. Was I really just being dramatic? The next morning, I dragged myself to our family's hardware store, fighting waves of dizziness. Thomas was already there, efficiently stocking shelves while I struggled to count inventory. "You're holding that clipboard like it weighs 100 pounds, he scoffed. "Maybe if you spent less time Googling diseases and more time exercising." I tried to respond, but the room suddenly started spinning. The clipboard clattered to the floor as I grabbed the counter for support. Through blurring vision, I saw Thomas roll his eyes. "And the Oscar goes to," he began, but his voice sounded distant underwater. The last thing I heard was his annoyed sigh as my legs gave out and everything went black. I woke up in the emergency room, the harsh fluorescent lights making my head pound. Dr. Stevens stood at my bedside, her face grave as she reviewed something on her tablet. My family huddled in the corner, looking more annoyed than concerned. "Emma's preliminary blood work shows some concerning abnormalities," Dr. Stevens began, but my mother cut her off. "She fainted because she skips breakfast to sleep in," she insisted. "Stop encouraging her attention-seeking behavior." Dr. Stevens' expression hardened. "Mrs. Mitchell, I've ordered a comprehensive autoimmune panel and scheduled an emergency consultation with Dr. Harrison, our top rheumatologist. This isn't attention-seeking. Your daughter is seriously ill." "Autoimmune?" Thomas scoffed. "Please, she just needs to toughen up." "Enough." Dr. Stevens' voice was sharp. "Emma's symptoms are real, and your dismissal of them has allowed her condition to worsen significantly. The blood work doesn't lie." For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across my family's faces. My mother's hand tightened on her purse strap, and my father shifted uncomfortably. "What kind of blood work?" he asked, his voice smaller than usual. "Her inflammatory markers are extremely elevated, and there are other indicators that suggest." Dr. Stevens was interrupted by a nurse rushing in with a new set of results. She read them quickly, her expression growing more serious. "Emma, we need to admit you immediately. Your condition is more advanced than we initially thought." "Admit her." My mother's voice cracked. But she was just being dramatic. "We thought." "You thought wrong," Dr. Stevens said firmly, "and your daughter has suffered because of it." As they wheeled me to the hospital room, I caught a glimpse of my family's faces. The mockery was gone, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Fear. They hadn't believed me when I begged them to listen, but now they had no choice. The truth was written in black and white, in numbers and medical terms they couldn't dismiss. Little did they know, this was just the beginning. The specialist's report would change everything, not just for me, but for the family who had spent a year laughing at my pain. The hospital room became my temporary home as doctors rushed in and out, drawing blood, running tests, and documenting every symptom I'd been telling my family about for a year. Dr. Harrison, the rheumatologist, spent hours reviewing my case, his face growing more concerned with each new result. My family lingered awkwardly in the corner of the room, their usual confidence shattered. Thomas no longer made snide comments about my acting skills, and my mother had stopped throwing away my medication. Instead, they watched in silence as nurses administered IV medications and doctors discussed terms like systemic inflammation and autoimmune response. The comprehensive panel results are back, Dr. Harrison announced one morning, walking into my room with a thick file. My family straightened up, trying to maintain their composure. Emma has systemic lupus erythematosus, an aggressive autoimmune disease that's been attacking her body for months, possibly years. Lupus, my father stammered. But that's a real disease. Dr. Harrison's eyes narrowed. Yes, Mr. Mitchell, it's very real. And because it went untreated for so long, Emma's organs have sustained significant damage. My mother sank into a chair, her face pale. How bad is it? Her kidneys are showing signs of inflammation, her heart has been affected, and the joint damage is extensive, Dr. Harrison explained, his voice stern. All of which could have been minimized with early intervention. Thomas, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. But she seemed fine most days. She was just complaining a lot. That's the nature of autoimmune diseases, Dr. Harrison replied. They're invisible illnesses. Patients often look healthy while their bodies are essentially at war with themselves. He turned to my parents, his expression grave. Emma reported her symptoms consistently for a year. She sought medical help. She kept detailed records. The only thing that prevented proper treatment was the persistent dismissal of her concerns. The weight of his words hung heavy in the room. My mother started crying softly, while my father stared at the floor. Thomas couldn't even look at me. The treatment plan will be aggressive, Dr. Harrison continued. Daily medications, monthly infusions, regular monitoring. Emma will need significant support during her recovery. Support. The word echoed in my head as I remembered all the times I begged for exactly that, only to be called dramatic or attention-seeking. We'll help, my mother said quickly, wiping her eyes. Whatever she needs. That's right, Thomas added, finally meeting my gaze. We're here for you, Em. But their words felt hollow after a year of mockery and dismissal. Dr. Harrison seemed to sense this because he turned to them with a stern expression. Emma will need more than just physical support, he said. The emotional trauma of having her illness dismissed for so long will require professional counseling. I'm recommending both individual and family therapy. My father started to protest, but Dr. Harrison cut him off. This isn't optional, Mr. Mitchell. The stress of fighting for validation has likely exacerbated Emma's condition. If you want to help her heal, you'll need to address the damage caused by your disbelief. As my family absorbed this, a nurse arrived with my first round of proper medication. She efficiently hooked up the IV, checking my vitals with practiced care. How's the pain level? She asked kindly. 8, I admitted, watching my mother flinch at the number. We'll get that under control, the nurse assured me, adjusting my pain medication. You don't have to suffer in silence anymore. Those words broke something in my mother. She rushed to my bedside, grabbing my hand. Emma, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. We should have listened. We should have believed you. I looked at her tear-stained face, then at my father's guilty expression and Thomas's ashamed demeanor. Part of me wanted to comfort them, to say it was okay. But Dr. Harrison's words about emotional trauma rang in my ears. You're right, I said quietly. You should have. The silence that followed was deafening. My family had always expected me to forgive their dismissal, to move past their doubt without consequence. But as I lay there, watching the medication that would actually help me drip slowly into my veins, I realized something. I didn't owe them immediate forgiveness. Dr. Harrison seemed to read my thoughts. Healing takes time, he said, looking pointedly at my family, both physical and emotional. Emma will need space to process everything she's been through. My family nodded solemnly, finally understanding that their actions had consequences they couldn't simply brush aside. As they left the room that evening, I heard Thomas ask my mother, "How did we get it so wrong?" Their footsteps faded down the hall, leaving me alone with the steady beep of monitors and the weight of vindication. The specialist's report had done more than confirm my illness. It had forced my family to face the truth they'd spent a year denying. 3 months into my treatment, the dynamics in our family had shifted dramatically. The hardware store that had once been my prison now operated without me, as my medical team insisted on prioritizing my recovery. My family, stripped of their previous arrogance, tiptoed around me like I was made of glass. Our mandatory family therapy sessions were tense affairs. Dr. Parker, our therapist, didn't let anyone hide from accountability. Emma spent a year being gaslit about her own body. She said during one particularly difficult session, "Each of you played a role in dismissing her pain. We need to address that." Thomas, who once mocked my every symptom, now sat quietly as we discussed how his behavior had impacted me. "I just didn't understand," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "I thought if I couldn't see it, it wasn't real." "That's exactly the problem," Dr. Parker responded. "Your inability to see beyond your own experience caused significant harm to your sister." My mother, who had taken to obsessively researching lupus, tried to overcompensate by hovering constantly. She'd swing between suffocating guilt and frantic attempts to fix everything. "I found a new specialist in Boston," she'd announce, dropping stacks of printouts on my lap. "And I've joined 3 lupus support groups on Facebook." "Mom," I said gently during one such moment, "I already have a medical team I trust. The same one you dismissed for a year." Her face crumpled. "I know, I need to do something." "What you need to do," Dr. Parker interjected, "is acknowledge that your previous actions cause harm and respect Emma's boundaries now." My father struggled the most with our new reality. The man who once commanded our family with unwavering authority now seemed lost, especially when dealing with the financial implications of his previous dismissal. "If we had listened," he muttered one day, reviewing my medical bills, "if we had gotten you treated sooner, the damage would have been less severe," I finished for him. "The treatment might have been less aggressive, but we can't change that now." Dr. Harrison's predictions about organ damage had proven correct. My kidneys were significantly impaired, requiring careful monitoring and specialized treatment. Each new medical report served as a stark reminder of what ignoring my symptoms had cost. But something unexpected happened as my physical health slowly improved. I found my voice. Years of being silenced had taught me to doubt myself, to minimize my own experiences. Now, with validation from my medical team and support from Dr. Parker, I learned to advocate for myself. During a family dinner 6 months into my treatment, Thomas made an offhand comment about another employee calling in sick. "Probably just needs attention," he said automatically, then froze, realizing what he'd done. "No," I said firmly, meeting his gaze. "You don't get to do that anymore. You don't get to dismiss someone else's pain just because you can't see it." The table fell silent. In the past, I would have let such comments slide, but not anymore. "Emma's right," my father said, surprising everyone. "We learned that lesson the hard way." My mother reached for my hand across the table. "We're still learning," she admitted. The hardware store, once the symbol of my family's disbelief, underwent its own transformation. Thomas instituted flexible sick leave policies and stopped questioning when employees needed medical accommodations. "I tell everyone about you," he confessed during one of our therapy sessions, "about how wrong we were and what it cost us. I never want to be that person again." Dr. Harrison continued to monitor my progress, noting improvements but never sugarcoating the long-term implications of delayed treatment. "Your lupus is stabilizing," he explained during a recent checkup, "but some of the damage is permanent. This is your new normal." My family winced at those words, but I felt strangely peaceful. My new normal included regular medications, careful monitoring, and lifestyle adjustments. But it also included something I'd never had before: the absolute certainty that my experiences were valid. 1 year after my diagnosis, I stood in my old bedroom, packing the last of my things. I'd found an apartment closer to my medical team, with space for a home office where I could work remotely on my own terms. "Are you sure about this?" my mother asked from the doorway, anxiety clear in her voice. "I am," I replied, taping up another box. "I need to do this for myself." She nodded, understanding that this move was about more than just convenience. It was about independence, about trusting myself again. "We failed you," she said softly. But I hope you know how proud we are of who you've become despite that." I looked at her, seeing not the mother who had thrown away my medicine, but a woman who had learned harsh lessons about belief and support. "I know," I said, "and I'm proud of how far we've all come." The specialist's report had done more than diagnose my illness. It had forced my family to confront their prejudices and reshape their understanding of invisible disabilities. While the journey had been painful, it had led us to a place of greater awareness and respect. As I carried the last box to my car, I knew that my story might help others fighting for validation. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't just against illness, but against the disbelief of those closest to us.